So I want to talk to you about the creative mind versus a mind that is based in fear. So when you have a creative mind, then you are here to create, which we're all here to create something. And then if you are faced with a challenge, then you have the ability to be creative and break through that challenge. And here's why. Let's say you're traveling along through your business and you're creating whatever it is you're creating through your business or your work, and all of a sudden you're faced with a challenge. Now, when a challenge occurs, it's like you're traveling along and all of a sudden there's this, like a cap to where you're going, or a roadblock, or some sort of obstacle. Now, if you're faced with a challenge and all of a sudden if you go into fear mode and you start acting and thinking and responding from fear, then what's going to happen is you're not going to break through that challenge. And here's why. When you are faced with a challenge and it's like you're shooting up, right, and then all of a sudden you meet this challenge, then if you respond in fear, then you're not thinking past that challenge. It's like you're just meeting the same limited thinking as you had before you came up with that challenge. So in order to break through that challenge, you need to adopt a new way of thinking. And this can be in regards to competition, or this can be in regards to any competition, any challenge that faces you. So let's say you're traveling along in your business, a great example, and a competitor comes along and tries to defeat you. If you go into fear mode and think, how can I beat this guy? This guy's going to destroy me, and maybe you go into reaction, then you're going to be competing with that guy and you're only going to either match his capability or slightly better. Or you're going to do something to avoid not being beaten. And when you make a decision to avoid something, then it's a decision based in fear, not in love. A decision that's based in love is a creative thought or a creative decision. And when you're faced with a competitor, instead of saying, well, how can I beat this guy, how can I just beat this guy, or how can I avoid him taking over my business, or how can I avoid this destruction which might happen, instead, if you make the decision, well, how can I create something here right now? How can I create something in alignment with my path that is more powerful and more admirationable than my competitor? So to compete, there can be healthy competition because you are inspiring each other to compete against each other in order to create something that's even better. Now, each individual is someone who's unique. You all have unique talents, you all have unique gifts. You have something special to add to this world that nobody else has got. So if you meet with a competitor head on and you're competing with that person to replicate the same product but do it in a better way, or competing with his line of work instead of creating, then you'll be thinking, well, I'm just going to beat this guy by one notch. But instead, if you recognize your own capabilities and instead of competing, say, how can I become the best person, or how can I create the best thing that I can create right now? So instead of competing, you can be creating. And then what happens is let's say there's two people here. And these two people, here's your competitor and here's you. This competitor's traveling in one direction. If you're traveling in the same direction, then you're always going to be butting up against heads and trying to beat each other just by that margin. Or you might want to beat them by a lot. Either way, you're thinking competitively. But if you think creatively, then all of a sudden, instead of competing for the same thing and traveling parallel, then you will start to create your own unique thing, your own unique gift, your own unique talent, even if it's in the same industry. And all of a sudden, you'll start to veer off in this direction. That person will keep going in their direction, or they'll try and match you by copying your type of work, or your products or your services. But you're the one with the gift, you're the one with the talent that has that inner nature, that inner power of creating your special thing that you're going to give to the world. So if someone's trying to compete with you, then they have no match for the power of your creation from your gift. And as long as you stick to that and you stick to what is true to you and your power and ability to create, then you're putting power into what you love, into what you want to create for this world. And then what happens is if that person decides, well, I'm going to create as well instead of competing, as you might still have healthy competition in the same industry. But if that person decides, well, I'm going to create as well, then all of a sudden you start heading off in different directions and you're both creating. You might still be both competing in a sense that you might attract more customers than this person, which is healthy competition. and you're both creating, which means you're both creating magnificent creations which people will be attracted to. Whereas if one person's traveling in a direction for their purpose and their inner power and what the gifts and talents that they have, and somebody's trying to trail behind them, competing with them, they'll never have the ability to match them unless they tap into their own source of power, their own gifts and their own creation, and then create from their source.